Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be, taking a deep dive into something that's changing like every single minute, and it could have a huge impact on you. We're talking about the potential TikTok ban here in the US.
Hmm.
Remember all those rumors going around about like app updates being blocked?
Yeah.
Well, just forget about that,
Yeah.
because this could mean like a total shutdown as early as, get this, Sunday?
It really is moving a lot faster than I think anyone really anticipated. Reports are even suggesting that this federal ban on TikTok could lead to it being completely unavailable in the U.S. this coming Sunday.
Shut down Sunday. Can you believe that? Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. I mean, what happened to make things move so quickly? I thought, ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok, I thought they were fighting this like tooth and nail.
Well, they were. They basically had like three choices, right? They could
Oh.
shut down completely. They could sell TikTok to a non-Chinese owner, or they could just sort of wait for the app stores to remove it, which would have been a much slower process.
Right. And we know they haven't wanted to sell. So,
So is this whole shutdown Sunday thing just a power play to just like force a better deal?
it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, just imagine 170 million American users suddenly cut off from TikTok.
Wow.
That's a lot of unhappy people.
Yeah.
And that's leverage, right? It
Yeah.
sends a very strong message.
It's not just unhappy people, right? I mean, we're talking about 170 million users, 7 million businesses who are using TikTok. And, Senator Markey made a really good point. For folks under 40, I mean, this isn't just an app, it's their culture, it's how they make their livelihood. I mean, some people depend on this for their income.
Absolutely. And as Senator Markey pointed out, the economic and social impact, it would be huge, especially in places like California where TikTok is just so deeply embedded in people's lives.
Not to mention the human element of all of this, right? People connect on TikTok, they build communities, especially during, difficult times. I mean, what happens to those communities if the app just vanishes overnight? It really raises a lot of questions about what happens next. I mean, if TikTok is suddenly out of the picture, who steps in to fill that gap? A lot of people assume that, the big players like Instagram, they'll just sort of gobble up those users. But, it might not be that straightforward.
That's what I was thinking, yeah. Will everyone just suddenly flock over to Instagram?
Right.
Or, is this a chance for something new to kind of emerge?
Yeah.
I'm really fascinated by this whole idea of this, this whole new social media landscape taking shape.
What's really interesting is that we're already seeing new apps popping up that are specifically targeting, TikTok's user base. And some of them are growing really incredibly fast. Take Lemonade, for instance.
Right.
That's actually owned by ByteDance themselves.
Oh, wow. So they're hedging their bets.
Yeah.
That's pretty savvy.
Yeah.
What about other contenders? Any names that we should be watching?
Yeah, there's Red, which is known as Douyin in China. There's Flip Clapper and Fanbase. All of them focused on, short form video and giving creators ways to make money, much like TikTok. And what's so fascinating is whether any of these newcomers could become the next big thing.
Right, yeah.
We could be witnessing like the birth of a whole new era in social media.
Yes, it's like a race is starting, but we don't even know who all the runners are yet.
That's
right?
fact.
But,
Yeah.
this ban didn't just materialize out of thin air, did it? I mean, there's a whole lot of political backstory here.
Right. So there's this bipartisan law specifically targeting TikTok. And even, President Biden signed it.
Wow.
So to understand this, you really have to understand there's been a lot of concern about national security, right?
Okay.
Representative Johnson, for example, compared it to letting the Soviet Union control major media outlets.
Wow.
For him, it's not about, goofy dance videos. It's about national security.
So is this like a new Cold War, but for social media? That's a pretty intense comparison.
Well, it wasn't just, one political party pushing for this ban.
Right.
A law was passed with support from, both sides, Democrats and Republicans. This wasn't a partisan issue.
Okay.
The concern is that, user data could be accessed by the Chinese government, potentially for things like, surveillance or even influencing public opinion.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
But not everyone's buying into that narrative, right? I mean, Senator Markey's been pretty vocal about his opposition to this ban, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. He argues there's no evidence of, any data compromise and emphasizes, the economic and social importance of TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
It's this clash of priorities, right?
Yeah.
National security versus, economic and social benefits. And it's a tough question. Do the potential risks really outweigh the benefits?
It's a tough one. And just when you thought it couldn't get any more complicated, we have this whole Elon Musk twist.
Ah, yes. Reports have surfaced that Chinese officials were actually considering him as a potential buyer for TikTok.
Elon Musk running TikTok. That's wild. Imagine TikTok joining his social media empire alongside, X, formerly known as Twitter.
It would be a very bold move. And while, TikTok called those reports fiction, you can see why it might be appealing.
Right.
Musk has a ton of business interests in China,
Yeah.
which makes him a very, very strategic choice.
Imagine that.
It definitely adds like another whole layer of intrigue to this situation.
Yeah, it's like watching this high-stakes poker game unfold right in front of our eyes.
And we're all just, trying to figure out who's bluffing and who's holding the winning hand.
So, with all of these moving pieces, where do we even go from here? I mean, this whole thing's changing so fast, it's hard to even keep up.
I think that's the, million-dollar question, isn't it? The situation really is evolving so rapidly, and the potential for disruption is just massive.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't just about one single app. It's really about the future of social media, especially here in the U.S.
Right.
We're really at a turning point here. One path leads to, a more fragmented internet where like each country has its own little separate social media world. The other path, well, I mean, we don't even know what that looks like yet.
Right.
It's uncharted territory.
It really makes you think, what happens to all those creators who rely on TikTok for income? What'll they do if the platform just disappears?
It's a very valid concern.
Yeah.
A lot of people have built their careers on TikTok, and this ban could have, a really significant impact on their livelihoods.
Yeah.
They would need to adapt, find new platforms, rebuild their audiences. It's a daunting prospect.
And what about the users? I mean, TikTok's become such a cultural phenomenon, like a place where people connect and, share their creativity, find community. What fills that void if it's just gone?
That's where, those alternative apps that we were talking about come into play.
Right.
The question is, can they capture that same magic that made TikTok so popular?
Yeah.
Will they attract that same vibrant community, the same level of creativity? Or will something entirely new kind of emerge from this whole shakeup?
Yeah, I'm really curious to see what happens. Do you think any of these new apps have a real shot at becoming the next TikTok? Or will they just be like pale imitations?
It's really hard to say at this point. The beauty of disruption is that it often leads to some really cool innovation.
Mm-hmm.
So we might see a whole wave of new platforms and features that we haven't even imagined yet.
Right.
It's a time of great uncertainty, but it's also a time of great opportunity.
It's both exciting and a little bit scary at the same time.
Yeah.
It feels like we're on the cusp of something big, but we don't know if it's going to be good or bad.
That's right.
And remember, we're not just passive observers in this whole process, right?
Yeah.
We, the users, have a role to play in shaping the future of social media.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The choices that we make about which platforms we use, how we engage with content, how we voice our opinions, all of that contributes to shaping that social media landscape.
That's a good point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're active participants in this evolution, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
And this TikTok situation, it really highlights that.
It really does. It's a reminder that social media isn't just about entertainment. It's about power and influence and control.
Right.
And right now, the stakes are incredibly high. So I want to turn it over to you, our listener. If TikTok does shut down here in the U.S., what does this all mean for the future of social media? Especially like here in the U.S., it's a globally connected world, but are we headed for like a more divided internet experience? And what will you do if you depend on TikTok for your income or like for your community? What opportunities could even come out of all of this?
Those are all really important questions. Yeah. This isn't just like a tech story, right? It's about politics. It's about culture. It's about how we even connect with each other in this like digital age that we live in.
Yeah.
The stakes are really, really high.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
But it feels like we've only just like scratched the surface.
I think that's the nature of deep dives, isn't it?
Yeah.
The more we explore, the more we realize just how much more there is out there to discover.
So true. Well, a huge thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive into the potential TikTok ban. And, it's a story that's still unfolding, so make sure you stay tuned for updates. And who knows what fascinating topics we'll be exploring next time. Until then, keep diving.